Hi, everyone. Welcome to Monday Musings. I'm one of your hosts, Elizabeth Manikin. I am the head of university programs and academic projects at the Ackland Art Museum. I'm joined by my co-host, Allison Portnow-Lathrop, who is our head of public programs. Musings, as some of you know, is a card game that we developed at the Ackland, and it comprises a series of artist quotes, stuff from philosophers, sort of would you rather propositions that prompt us to think about art, museums, the nature of beauty. Some of it's serious, some of it's silly, but we hope that it provokes different kinds of thoughts and conversations. And today, for that conversation, we've invited two of our fantastic colleagues, Joel Vanderkamp, who is one of our preparators at the Ackland, and Haley Hargraves, who is our membership manager. So with that, we are going to muse. And for those of you unfamiliar, the muses are the goddesses of the arts, and they live in a museus or museum, which is a house for the muses. So there you go.
Thank you. All right. I have the privilege of asking the question. I'll read it and then we'll have to decide who looks more ready to answer.
Haley does.
Haley, you're nominated. Get ready for it. Some museum scholars present art museums as a place to escape the chaos and conflict of the outside world. Others propose museums are the very place to engage with the wider world and gain insight into the breadth of human creation. Are these ideas mutually exclusive, Haley? What's the relationship between the world in here in the museum, where we all wish we could be, and the world outside?
I think that's a really interesting question because it involves both what's in the museum as well as yourself. I mean, like there are multiple, I guess like not categories, but I do think that it can depend on what type of museum you're in, and also like what you're, specifically looking at. It isn't a piece in the Ackland's collection, but I definitely remember interacting with Felix Gonzalez-Torres's Portrait of Ross in LA. And that is a situation in which I would not have been exposed to that in the same way in the outside world. That is an interactive work of art in which you are encouraged to take a piece of candy and consume it. And it's about like the AIDS crisis and about that kind of like overall responsibility of like the greater society. And I think, if work is political, and which isn't always inherently political, but can be, I think that is definitely a relationship that you wouldn't necessarily experience on the outside.
Yeah. So this idea of sort of outside issues brought into the museum, but you're able to engage with them in ways that you wouldn't be able to engage with them necessarily outside the museum.
Yes, and I think it's also like the level in which people like engage, because there are works of art, like something like that, in which you can look at as you're going through the galleries and then like continue on. You aren't necessarily required to engage with every work of art on like multiple levels, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. We had a piece in that series in our More Love exhibition in 2013, and the entire time it was on view, I couldn't eat a single piece of candy. It was just like I felt like I really engaged with the piece and really got it, but I couldn't bring myself to do it. It was just too sad, like frankly. So yeah. I don't know, it's super powerful.
Yeah.
It's interesting. It's like this conversion of the thing's meaning in that space. So there's something that happens when it comes into the museum.
Mm-hmm.
Joel, you were going to say something?
I think that's a really interesting observation. I was thinking of, it made me think of something along similar lines. I think that I have a tendency to go into museums thinking of it in terms, or looking through it like as the lens of somebody who makes things too, and then what my interests are as a maker, so which are pretty formal interests. And I think that piece that you're talking about is really interesting, because there's no context to it, formally it's still very interesting and beautiful and graphic. But you can still engage with it on a deeper level when you start bringing context to it, which is what a museum does or can do, but it doesn't have to be that either. So for me, mostly my experience is appreciating the sort of formal aspects of art. One piece or groups of pieces at our museum that I think about in those terms are in the African galleries. I love going into that space and appreciating that art for its formal qualities, but I also know that the forms of those works are really influenced by the function of those pieces. A lot of them are ceremonial. Even the things that are like garb are very ceremonial, and so I know that there's they're graphically and formally very interesting, but they're also they have a much deeper context in which you can engage with that culture. So.
Yeah, I think those levels of context and meaning, as Haley was saying, there's this sense of embedding that can happen, like with you, the objects in the museum, the physical space of the museum and the transformational qualities of that, the outside world, how we understand those behaviors. Absolutely. This is a tough one for me. I was thinking about it a little bit, and I don't think the ideas are mutually exclusive at all. I think that sense of, it depends on the kind of museum, the kind of object, the kind of day, of course, but I don't know, that sense of what you're seeing through the object and sort of escaping yourself and getting out of your own perspective and your own world perspective, but also learning about perspectives that are not your own. And some of it can be meditative and some of it can be really confrontational and force you to see perspectives and histories or structures that you might not otherwise. So, yeah. Allison, you want to weigh in, or should we leave it to our studio audience?
I would love to leave it to our studio audience.
All right.
I hope that you'll join us in answering this question along with Haley and Joel on Instagram or Facebook or Twitter. You can always chit chat with us there and tell us what you think. If you can escape the outside world through the art, through the Ackland perhaps, or if you always bring those outside perspectives in.
Happy Monday, everyone. Muse away.